Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life, episode 265. My name is NBZ. And Bally, sometimes you get to that point with the beard, right? Now, I don't have a beard, really. I have hair on my face that you could say is a beard, and, you could, classify it as that. It's really just hair that mainly goes down my neck and doesn't, the side of my face. It's a neck beard. I'm one of those redneck beards who lives in the US. I even talk with an American cadence most of the time. Bally tells me off all the time. He messaged me twice.
I call that Americanisms.
He does. He's like, you know that thing you said is like American. You and my sister both the fucking devils and angels on my shoulder, being like, you motherfucker. But except you're both devils. You're like, you stupid piece of shit. Stop using Americanisms. When I was in Mexico with my sister, I kept using the word neat, and she was like, shut up, stop saying that word. And I was like, I don't realize that was like an Americanism, but she got really fucking annoyed. I just kept saying it accidentally because it's just part of my vocabulary. I was like, oh, that's neat. And she's like, why you never say neat? That's an American word, you're not American. I'm like, well, this is just what happens to my vocabulary.
The two I called out on WhatsApp yesterday were, first of all, using real instead of really. So he says, that's real good.
I say that all the time.
That's real good. It's in the UK, we say, that's really good.
Yeah.
It's always a really, not a real. And then the second one was, you were saying how stoked you were for Prince of Persia. Yeah. And I was saying, stoked, that is such an
very
Americanism.
Yeah.
We'd say, I'd be like, I'm hyped up, I'm excited, I'm looking forward to, but stoked is very I said this to Caroline, and she was like, it's very kind of notes. I was like, yeah, it's very Blink 182 kind of.
It kind of is. It has that vibe to it. Yeah. Fucking stoked, man. I don't know. It is just I have been corrupted by media for years, as well as just talking to Americans on the internet, which I don't do as much of these days. But I think that critical period in my life when I was evolving as a person was I was talking to a lot of
way more than Americans, but for some reason,
I don't know. I just spent a lot of time with. I think it's also listening. Podcast has really done it to me. Also, there's definitely turns of phrase that I take from podcasts because people say them all the time. So that definitely affects it. Anyway, I was talking about my beard, which I just get to that point where I'm like, there's that awkward part of if you do it too early, then it feels like it's a waste, but if you do it too late, then it becomes a pain in the arse. And now I'm someone who uses a manual shaver, really. I'm not a automatic guy. I just really don't like them. They hurt me. They're annoying.
You only wet shave?
Yeah, I only do hot water with a regular manual shaver with cream, but it can't be it has to be foam, really. It has to be a foamy cream, basically. And that is the only way I do it. But then that's the thing, is the way I get hair out of it is you tap it on the side of the sink to get it out, and then the head falls off and you have to get it back in. But here's the thing, I also am a cheapskate, so I try and make these blades last as long as possible. So I eventually get to that point where I'm like, my beard is too long, and I have a almost dead razor, and that's where I'm like, okay, this is fucked up. I need to change this one. It always...
It's my HP is low. I'm out of mana. I need to sort this out.
Honestly, legit, it probably says a lot about my personality, because that is what I'm like in JRPGs as well. It's I will wait till the last possible moment. I don't want to waste all my stuff, my renewable resources, right? And I'm I've only got 3 blades left. Then I'm going to have to go back to Superdrug and spend an extortionate amount. Again, extortionate amount being 12 quid. But I'm this is... I try and make a pack of 6 last me for at least a year, because that's just, that's going to do me well. So anyway, Bally, I'm sure you don't deal with this because you probably just use an electric razor.
See, my wet razors, I will wet shave when I have to. I've not shaved my beard off fully in a long
That's true.
time.
Yeah, you just keep it.
But so that means I trim my beard, and trimming your beard is just really therapeutic. I only do it I only have to do it once every 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I just trim it short, and then I let it get bushy, and then I trim it short again, and it doesn't look the neatest when it's at its longest, but it's comfortable. And when it gets too long. But if I just because I went through a phase at uni of wet shaving every day, and it does take a toll on your skin and just the irritation. So how frequently do you wet shave?
I would say if I'm on top of things, once a week. If I'm not,
once a week. That day before you go into the office, right? You're just
yeah, probably. Yeah, it's usually a Sunday night. I'm shit. it's getting too long. But yeah, usually once every 2 weeks. So I feel like I'm at that 2 week point now. So I'm probably gonna this weekend have to do it. But
Right.
it's always nice because I'm always like, oh, I've got some podcasts to listen to. Let's just again therapy, like you said. I find a lot of these tasks like I like cooking and I like doing like tasks in the house or whatever because I always have a podcast. And there's always a reason to do something that I don't necessarily want to do because I actually do like I like hoovering. The problem with hoovering for me is it's so loud that it's sometimes hard to hear podcasts when you're hoovering, you know. But
you need some better headphones there.
anything. Well, you know, I've got good headphones, but it's just
But you don't use your headphones. You use your speaker that you carry around like a boombox.
I do. That's true. No, but I do have AirPods. So I do use AirPods. So
Okay.
That's okay. But this comes
You
back
don't
all
like
the way.
the squidgy in-ear ones.
No, I
like,
fucking
that
hate
the
those.
entire industry has moved towards.
Yeah,
I really like.
God, see, this is my problem with the entire industry. Like, I use manual shavers that I can't buy anymore. I use regular headphones that no one sells anymore. Like, I look, in some ways, Bally, I like to be ahead with the kids. You know, I have a TikTok account. You know, I'm looking at trends. I'm there. I don't want to be left behind like all the old grandpas, right? But with some things, I am just stuck in the past, and those are a few of those things. So, it's what happens sometimes.
It does.
But
It does.
anyway. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Nintendo and video games. Wow, what a concept. Bally, what are we going to be talking about today on today's show?
For the first segment, we're going to talk about the games that we have been playing. And then for the second segment, we've got a couple of emails that the fine folks that listen to the show sent in. And
Indeed.
We're also going to wrap up the show with our official Game Trade games for 2024. If you don't know what that is, myself and MBZ, we give each other a game that we have not played yet. I think it has to be on the Nintendo platform as well. Game that we have not played yet.
I think it does because I have so many not Nintendo platform games. I'm like, oh, I really want to give Bally that, but I can't because it's not on Switch.
We might bend the rules at some point, but probably not this year. But so I give MBZ a game, he gives me a game that we have not played yet, and we have to play that by the end of the year. We'll get to that at the end of the show.
Yeah, so stay tuned for some excitement. But, Bally, let's talk about the games we've been playing. And I've had a bit of a nice jump kickstart to 2024. I was like...
beating a ton of short games to get your numbers up, and
exactly.
they have to look good, so it looks
we had this
good on the
conversation
thumbnail, and it's very
this,
particular.
This entire thing, basically, right, where I'm like... I'm very pernickety about, like... making sure that my lists are looking nice, and so on GG,
it's gone way beyond that point.
Oh, it's
the
way
list
well
has taken
beyond.
over the gameplay, not the gameplay taking
honestly,
over the list.
I play games for the list more than playing the games
Oh
at
my
this
God.
point, right? I don't care about video games anymore. I'm here for the list. So basically, what I do is like this list on GG, right? You can have these thumbnails on there, and what it shows you for your list the first 5 that are going to be basically in the list. So the first 5 games I play are important because if they don't have the nice colors and stuff. Last year I fucked up basically. Last year I had a terrible color scheme. You did as well, frankly. Yours last year is pretty bland. So I was looking at that list, I'm like, this looks really not great. I want to have some spice. And so I was like, let's play some games that are short, that have really nice covers to them, really. And that's what I'm going to do. That wasn't the main reason because I wanted to play these games anyway, but it's a nice bonus, right? And it's a nice...
so long grey games are banned.
Yeah, exactly. Anything
Last was
monotone.
Part 2, banned.
Oh god, that would be out.
Too
It's
dark,
so
not
it is.
colourful
It is
enough.
very funny though because if you do go, and I think we talked about this before, if you do go to our TNL list, which you can find as pinned on the Discord of every list we've ever done on the show, which is our GOTY to GOTY list as well as our joint Game of the Year list. You notice you look at Bally's list, it goes from bright and colourful to this. All of a sudden he buys a PS4 and it's like grey, brown, grey, green.
My GOTY to GOTY list of 2018 or maybe 19?
I think 2019.
Is so grey and
It's
brown.
like, yeah.
It's like, what happened to you, Bally? What happened?
Exactly. You just became one of those grey boys who just like lived in the 360 era and all you did was live in the mud and play Call of Duty, basically. Anyway, what I wanted to do was play a bunch of... Because basically, at the end of last year, I put like a fucking lot of hours into Octopath 2. I played Metro Prime and stuff, like just trying to get some big games out of the way. And I was like, I need some short stuff to jump into the new year. And I've been meaning for a while to play a game that has been very highly recommended by a lot of people, and is very much, as I'll be honest, is a Bally game more so than an MBZ game.
It was December last year, December 2022.
22, yes, exactly. So it's a game called Little Gator Game. It's actually Lil Gator Game. It's not little spelled out. It's LIL is the official title of the game. And it is, I would call it, I said this to you, Bally, I'd call it a hike-like. It is a Zelda Breath of the Wild movement-wise inspired mini open world game where you play as this little gator. So it's kind of interesting because it does do that stuff very well, but it is very narrative focused also. So the idea is that you're this little kid, this gator, and you and your sister used to play in the woods, basically dress up and have a little sword and do these kind of make pretend, that's what you do as kids, and you go around and you just imagine things and you go and fight things and all that sort of stuff. And then it kind of fast forwards the story, and it's like 5 years later, and your sister is more grown up and you are still kind of childlike, so you're still kind of running around and you're out there in the woods with her, and she is on her laptop and she is just working on something. She's working on a project, right? She's now got responsibilities, she's an adult and she's got to sort stuff out, and you're like, oh, come on, let's go play, let's go do this stuff, and she is ignoring you. She's just tapping away at her laptop and just not interested, and she's like, oh, that sounds fun, I have to do this work now, you go play by yourself. And so the entire game is basically this thing of this kid being like, how do I get my sister to pay attention? How do I get her to come and play with me and with all our friends and go and have this fun adventure like we used to do when I was younger? And it's a really nice story. I think it's told very well, and there's lots of fun characters that you come across in terms of the different friends that you have, and it's quirky in terms of writing. It's very much I don't know, like there's a casualness to it. There's a readability that's like, it's not memey, I would say, but it's very much like breezy kind of reading and fun and light and comedic, very jokey, which I think it fits it quite well. And so as you kind of wander around this world and run around and explore, you'll find lots of different characters, and you have to do like mini quests for them to get them to join the camp. So eventually you basically start on a tutorial island, almost Breath of the Wild style, and then it's like now the big island, and then you go off to the bigger space and start exploring there.
And how do you improve your climbability? So like short hikes, I think you got like a feather per mini quest, and then your feather affected how high you could climb, but also how far you could glide, I believe.
Yes, yeah. So it's interesting because there's not that much upgrading of your climbing stuff. I only upgraded it once in the entire game. I think there's ways to upgrade it more, but you basically get a second circle. So like you have the stamina wheel, right? You get a second stamina wheel if you do it a second time. But I think a lot of the challenges are built to be like, you only have this one stamina wheel. How do you get up to this really high mountain? So it almost becomes a bit more of a puzzle in that way of figuring out, what kind of vantage point do I need to get over there? Can I jump from some other place, use the glider to get over there? And the glider doesn't use stamina, I believe. I think it's just climbing that uses it. So glider doesn't, so you can use that pretty freely.
So what's the incentive of doing all the quests?
It's basically like you have, on the big island, you have this playground, and this playground is like the idea behind it is there's no enemies in the game, but you have a sword and you can hit stuff. Basically, you are setting up like a kind of adventure, but the adventure involves your friends going around and making cardboard cutouts of enemies. So what you do is you go around and you just basically hit these cardboard cutouts of enemies, and you get a resource from that. So you get these kind of like paper shards, I guess, like these little bits of paper that kind of suck into you. And it is one of those things, I've not really heard people talk about this part of the game really, because it's more just like, it is really moment to moment. What you're doing is you're walking around this world and you're just kind of hitting these guys and getting this stuff like collected, and it's just very satisfying because the sound design on hitting them and the kind of crunch of the cardboard and the way at which it just like, the little bloop, 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 kind of dopamine of getting all that stuff is super satisfying. So moment to moment, you're just like going around hitting stuff, getting all that stuff, and then you're coming across characters, and you're basically recruiting them back to your base. And once you have enough characters recruited to your base, you can then spend that currency that you're collecting by hitting everything, as well as making sure you have enough people in order to build up different areas of it. So you build up a kitchen, you build up like a high dungeon area and stuff like that. There's like 5 major areas of it, and there's 3 major quests. So there's 3 friends who are the ones at the beginning, and each of them has their own thing they're dealing with, and you go and you talk to each of them and you solve each of their problems, basically. So it's 3 quests that then all split into 3 more quests, and once you've done those, they all come together and kind of get to the end of the game. But that's kind of the incentive, I'd say, in terms of the main journey is like just exploring around, finding people, doing the mini quests for them, focusing on those kind of main quests that you do, and then just run around hitting things and exploring nooks and crannies, like just jumping up onto mountaintops. Like the thing that I was interested in was at the beginning you have the guy who gives you the stamina wheel upgrade, and you're like, oh, okay, how do I find you again? And I expected to like come across him at the base or somewhere convenient. He's actually at a really high point in the game, to a point that I was like, I think I need more stamina to get up here, but actually you can just get up there. You don't need the stamina. You just have to figure out how to get up there. It's ironic because you get to the highest point and then you get your stamina upgrade. So it's like, well, now that I've got to the highest point, did I need more stamina? It's a little bit weird in that way, but I did find it very, very breezy, super enjoyable. It's a perfect handheld game, just chill, breezy.
How big is that island?
It's relatively sizable. It's interesting as well because there's no map. Like a short hike as well doesn't have a map, so it incentivizes you to kind of remember it and remember areas.
Better to play in not in one sitting necessarily, but like in a short space of time.
In a short space of time. I played it over 3 nights. It's about 3 hours long, so I basically did 1 hour every day and kind of finished it, which is a really nice, chill way of playing it. Very much an in-bed game for me. I'd go to bed an hour early and then just play an hour and then go to sleep, which is a very nice thing. I've been doing a lot more of that so far this year, so it's a good way to kind of get some games under the belt. And
365 hours right there into video games.
Exactly. So I can really knock it out. But I really enjoyed it. I think it's just very charming and a fun little game that is not stressful at all. Just has great little kind of animation quality, like the way the little gator walks around, he's like very bumbly and cute, and the climbing is very magnetic, like you just jump on a thing and he just starts climbing. It's very Breath of the Wild in that way. It almost feels like there's friction taken out of the experience in some senses, but I think that it's there's a fun way in which you can climb and then jump and kind of still get your speed, and there's a little bit of that going on. So yeah, movement is great, and just run around and talking to people, and it's just very well written and nice to look at, bright, colourful, just a good world to go and get lost in for a little bit. And
do you think you prefer it to Short Hike?
I don't know. I'd say it's probably on a par. I like them both very similarly. I'm not as big a fan of Short Hike as you. I think it's really excellent. I think I really enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, I'd put both these games on a kind of similar plane for me.
I need to get to this game.
It really feels like something that you would be very into. I think you probably prefer a Short Hike at the end of the day, but I think you'll get a lot out of Lil Gator Game, and I think it's cool. It's very, very fun. So I would check it out. It's probably the best definition of what I would call cozy, right? Like cozy has been applied to a lot of different games, but I think cozy fits Lil Gator Game very, very well. Nice. I recommend people check it out. The Switch version is very good. I played the Steam Deck version, but Switch version is very good. It's a good in-bed game that is enjoyable. So there you go.
Well, I'd argue this game that I've been playing is actually quite cozy as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we talked about 2023 was a very Bally year.
Yes, it was.
We've
indeed.
listed the games before, but it's Pikmin 4, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, F-099,
Advance Wars came back.
2, Advance Wars Reboot Camp, like the list, Octopath Traveler 2, the list goes on.
A mainline Zelda, which, is for everybody, but,
For everyone. And, I've been playing Sea of Stars. So this obviously won loads of awards last year. I think it even won Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards.
It did, which I was a little bit surprised by, but it definitely took it home.
It is I'm having a really good time so far. So I think I'm about 8.5 hours in. I know that the stuff kind of opens up in this game. I'm not quite there. I think I'm on the cusp of that.
Okay. Whereabouts are you right now? Where kind of like location wise and stuff like that?
I'm on a very creepy island.
You're in the Ghost Island?
I'm on the Ghost Island.
Okay, yeah.
And I have a new member of my party.
Okay, yes, yeah, okay. I know where you are.
I'm doing that stuff.
Excellent.
And yeah, I think this does all the things I really love about traditional RPGs. Now, it's obviously doing things very differently to a game like, say, Octopath Traveler 2. I'd call it, we were talking about this, where I think this game is a fellowship-like. So,
yeah.
where Octopath Traveler 2 is so splintered and all the characters are very separate, and the vast majority of the game you are playing as individual characters. I think that's the best definition of that type of game. Fellowship is the complete opposite, where you're spending the vast majority of the game with the same group of characters. So the
named after the Fellowship of the Ring.
Fellowship of the Ring,
the traditional adventuring party, basically.
Right, and we've talked. I think we've talked briefly in the past about how Lord of the Rings is kind of the genus of everything RPG related, but we don't have to dive that deep just now. But a lot of RPGs and JRPGs follow a party. You have a group that you follow along the way. There's relationships built throughout the journey.
There's a magic guy, there's a sword guy, there's a short guy with an axe,
And Sea of Stars is definitely in that mold and doing all the right things. I think the thing that kind of gave this game the most spotlight would be like the sprite work and the art in particular.
It's gorgeous. Oh my goodness.
It is unreal. It feels like Stardew Valley turned to 11, and it's kind of the way that it is incredible.
I think it goes like way further than that, right?
It does go way further. It makes you realize how like outdated a lot of sprite art actually looks when you see this kind of sprite art. This is like on a plane with like Eastward and beyond. Like, this is even better looking than Eastward, I'd even argue.
Really? Okay. I think Eastward's detail is higher in terms of like the detail of buildings and characters and stuff like that, but I think there's a perspective to Sea of Stars with its kind of isometric angle to it, where depth in the background and traversal is so important in this game, and I think that almost 3D element lends it kind of a different bent, and like the way they use modern lighting as well, right, with like the day and night stuff and all the kind of casting of shadows. Like there was I don't know if you got to this moment, but there's a moment where I walked past like this kind of crystal in a cavern, and the way it warps the sprite as you go past it is like, oh my goodness, wow, they really
like in the wind tunnel area.
They leverage like modern lighting and kind of just technical stuff on sprite art to just elevate it, basically.
And I think this game is almost like sprite art is arguably the most important thing. And what I mean by that is these locations feel like they are designed to fit into the art style. Like, it doesn't feel like there were all these locations designed and then they decided, right, what art style shall we use? It feels like they actually, like the crystal you explained, like they go for looks and things. Like, everyone's seen the kind of the cliff edges. That was, I think it was part of the demo, and it's in the main part of the trailer. It's one of the first areas in the game, and those cliffs just look so stunning on the water and the grassy plains and the trees. Like, this game, like a grand level, looks incredibly impressive, but at a micro level, it is still so well done in terms of like these locations that feel cozy and secluded, and there's great kind of in-design, bar design, like all the areas where you'd see like musicians playing and you'd buy drinks and things like that. All these areas in the game that are kind of typical JRPG tropey locations, I think this game absolutely nails. Like, I've been so impressed by just all the locations, like the way that towns are designed, and not everyone has anything particularly relevant to say in every single town, but the art design of those towns, of those buildings, I think has been top notch so far. And I especially
I mean we kind of chatted about it before, but like the whole kind of walking around and talking to people in towns thing is a thing that I think games in the Dragon Quest series excel at. I would say that's one of the strengths of Dragon Quest as a game, whereas a game like Octopath they feel like ciphers for mechanics more than anything.
Yeah.
And I would say that, Sea of Stars is one weakness that we can maybe get into is, I would say, writing. And I think that comes into play when you go into towns, because NPCs are very much like, here's one line, it's not that interesting, and there's not as much character from them. There's exceptions, of course, but I think that's a little bit of a drawback of some of those towns.
Yeah, I think that for a game that is very much Chrono Trigger Mark II, the writing is definitely an area that's definitely not as strong as Chrono Trigger. And you think back to ways that this game definitely improves on Chrono Trigger, I think writing is definitely not one of them.
I agree, yeah.
I think that if we talk about the art, I think artistically, I think this game is arguably more impressive than Chrono Trigger in many ways.
Yeah, sure.
And it has time on its side. Like, I think modern art designs and sprite designs and what this game is doing with all that is incredibly impressive. And yeah, I think that people talked about the slow start of this game, and I had no worries that I would absolutely love the slow start, and turns out I absolutely love the slow start.
I guaranteed Bally would like a long, boring tutorial that takes 7 hours, yeah.
I feel like they teach you the same mechanics at 2 or 3 different occasions.
Yeah, they do.
Because you kind of play like modern day, then you do the flashback, and then you learn the mechanics again through the flashback, and then when the flashback catches up with kind of where you're at, I feel like you learned the mechanics one more time, third time lucky. I loved all that stuff. I think the overarching story is really not punching for me quite yet. I think that I feel like this type of game, Fellowship likes, as it were, the one thing that I think they all do really well, whether it's Earthbound, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, they are so good at setting up the reason for your journey. I feel like I missed a line or something, or I was on this journey going between campfires, going between towns before I even realized why I'm doing it. Like, what are we doing here? And it turns out we're trying to meet these people on this island. I've completely forgotten why we're meeting them on this island. I know it has to be an eclipse, and I've completely forgotten why do we have to do the thing with the eclipse? Who even is the big bad? What is going like? I completely missed the point of why we have to be trained as solstice warriors, and then we go and we get our pal Garl. Garl's great, like Garl, but I completely missed what are we actually doing here. And I feel like in all those other examples I gave, there's just a lot more grounding in the reasons for the journey to start, which I feel is like such an open goal from a writing perspective of like so many stories are great at setup, right? Wrapping up different threads is the tough part of story writing, right?
Sure,
but setting up a world, and when you've got a beautiful world and so much going on and characters that I do care about, as dry as some of them are, I still really care about like my little pod of characters, but like there's so little explanation as to why we're doing these things. And there's cool things hinted at, and, is this mysterious power going to link to this? And I like where that's going, but it fundamentally missed an open goal on why am I actually on this mission in the first place, which was a big flaw for me in, say, the first 5 hours.
I think you're close to like a midpoint of the game where some of that becomes a little more clear, but you're right. Like, I think it might have even been, the very beginning, there's like the narrator guy who's like, and I'm going to tell you of a tale. And I think it may have been in there somewhere where they kind of set up what the stakes are or the big bad. But again, it's just not very cleanly done. And the jumping between timelines and stuff, like, because the academy is very much like, there are these older solstice warriors who are going to teach you, but like it almost feels, it's interesting because it almost feels like a regular job, right? It's like we don't really have a goal, but we're just going out and protecting the world from different threats.
Solstice warriors just go out and do this thing. We don't know why, but they go.
And I feel like the threat probably doesn't appear fully until the middle of the game, which is when it then has a bit more focus, right? And that's when the driving stuff happens. But you're right. It just I don't think, again, because not that I checked out the story early, but I'm like, that's not really why I'm here, so it doesn't bother me that much, because I liked everything else about the game. But I will say the back half of the game, from a spectacle, story, all that stuff perspective, gets really cool, and there's a bunch of post-game stuff that I didn't do that I looked up on YouTube that I was like, that's even cooler. So I feel like the back of it eventually pays off, but I think you have to do a good job from the beginning in order to make it fully work. And yeah, I think that's why the story generally didn't stick with me. And again, I don't think it's that rich either. So I don't know. It's there's not as much.
It is a shame because I do think the journey is really good. Like I'm really enjoying meeting these new characters. Why are we doing this? How does this town link to whatever? It certainly doesn't link to an overarching story as to why we're on this mission.
No.
But it certainly links to other world
all
building.
the locations are so varied and visually distinct that it's always like, I always found Sea of Stars to be a game, I don't know if you find this at all, but I could only really play a chunk of it at a time, where I was like, wow, like I just played this one chunk and I'm like, I need to stop now, because doing all the battles back to back and just not the intensity, but there's a density to battles, puzzles in a location that I was like, I could play it for an hour and then I have to stop. I feel like there's always a natural stopping point, and that's why it took me a little while to get through the game, I find, versus other RPGs where I find other RPGs much more playable and easier for me to just keep going with. But Sea of Stars felt so segmented in a way that I always kind of had that kind of like cap on it, and I was like, okay, I'm done for this session and I'll come back to it
almost
later.
find the segments more driving me on, to be honest.
Oh, interesting.
I'm like,
okay.
Right, I'm at this campfire, I've healed up, I've done some puzzles, I'm going to take on that final boss of this area, and now we're going to move on to the town, we're finding out the problem, we're into the dungeon, and we're puzzling again, and I feel like each dungeon, each segment is so small that I do just constantly want more. And I think from a difficulty perspective, it's every time I've thought the game might be getting too easy, something wallops me in a very kind of healthy way, actually.
I mean, the only kind of timing based RPG you've played is the original Paper Mario, right?
Yeah.
So this, I mean, again, this is, we talk about Chrono Trigger a lot, but really this is pulling from the Mario RPG lineage when it comes to the style of combat and the way that it works.
It's very much a blending of Chrono Trigger and Paper Mario for combat.
Yes,
and leveling up, because you get to like pick the area
one
that you level
point
up more.
or whatever, the couple of points.
So you get general level up points, but then you get like an extra boost to something you select, just like Paper Mario. Whereas Paper Mario
exactly.
But yeah, I think that it is. I really love the combat system. I think it's the perfect evolution of Chrono Trigger, to be honest, where when you actually think back to games like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, their battle systems are actually very simplistic, predominantly, especially when you compare them to like modern day JRPGs, where I feel like the number of things you can do, the number of different moves you can do, the number of combos you can do feels like it's increased exponentially in that genre compared to, say, in the 90s. And I think that adding in the timing, adding in different ways of, like, it's very interesting, like having the ability to rebuild up your MP, I think is also really important in this game, where if I go in with full health and full MP, it almost feels like if my magic power is full, I should be using it. So I feel like an opening gambit is...
They tell you that, don't they? They're like, hey, you should always be making sure this is being used up.
Right, use up your MP, and then you build it up through like physical attacks, and then on top of that, physical attacks and knocking out these little orbs, and then little orbs can give you a little bit of boost of magic attack to your physical attack.
Yeah, the boost stuff is really nice, right?
Really
because
nice.
There's a tactical level of hitting an enemy to get those on the field, and then you're like, oh shit, I need 2 hits, but you're like, oh wait, I can get the elemental and the blunt hit in this one go with this one character if I just absorb it into me, right? So that hit applies both, which just is a nice way of balancing it. And I think it's interesting because sometimes an enemy will not have a lock on them, but they're about to attack, but you would rather get rid of the locks on the other enemies because that's more dangerous to you than you'd rather just take a hit from a regular enemy rather than a bigger hit from a special attack that you can break instead.
I would say there are too many locks that have appeared where it is just physically impossible to break them all.
Yes, that can happen. Early on, definitely. There's some where you are forced to, basically, and you're forced to just deal with it and learn the timing.
You just got to sponge hits, and that's fine because it is easy enough to heal up, and it's got the combo powers from Chrono Trigger, which I do enjoy. And what's great about those is they don't use any MP, and they say you need to use these every battle because these little pips you get to power those up vanish after a battle.
They'll go away, right? You won't restore them.
You have the option to heal kind of thing. And I think all that stuff is really good. I think that like So I've made Garl like my tank. He's all about high health, taking hits. He doesn't really dish hits. He's more about healing and taking hits.
Yeah, that's what he's built for. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I've got, is it Valir? Valir's the moon lady, basically. And she's my physical attacker. And then with
Zale, right?
Zale, the sun dude, he's more my magic attacker. And that's kind of like the builds I'm going for at the moment. And it works well. It complements each other nicely. And I think that it's just a really nice combat system because it mixes things up. I love the timing, especially with like Valir's moon boomerang.
The boomerang is the best move in the game. I think it's an element of it which is a little unbalanced. That is so much a better option than a lot of the other moves in the game because it is eventually you get the timing down to where you can absolutely just nail it.
But the timing changes every time you use it because it's based on the distance between enemies and Valir. So you can get really unlucky in the way that it's laid out, and it becomes a really tricky timing versus if you're facing an enemy one-on-one, you can nail the timing and max it out.
I think that's true to some degree at where you are in the game anyway. By the time you get to the 25-hour mark, you have done so many combinations so many times that it becomes very second nature. And I think it eventually is like not an easy win button, but it basically is a good way to get big chunks of damage off of bosses and stuff like that. So, and I think that part of the problem with that is that if you look at your character right now, you'll see a couple of empty slots. And like it will take a while for you to get other moves. Like one of the drawbacks of this combat system is everyone has their own unique moves, and you only really have two, and then you get a third and a fourth.
I've got a third on each of Valir and Zale or whatever it's called.
So you'll only get one more for the rest of the next 15 hours. So that's where the combat doesn't get dry, but really the combat's variety more so comes from learning enemy patterns and enemy attacks. And that's where they get variety from, because your actual combat moves, there's not a big difference in what changes.
No, so. I get that. But certainly where I'm at so far, it is really fun and the variety is feeling fresh. And I am really loving it. Like I said, I actually think it's a really cozy game, especially like a lot of the art design around the campfires. And you can pretty much put a campfire anywhere. Like you can put them in the overworld.
The pink-haired girl, what's her name? The
storyteller girl.
Yes,
yeah, she's great.
Some of those stories are really good, actually. Like,
really
there's
good.
Some good lore in there, and I think it's actually the best writing in the game is kind of her stories and the lore of the world that you can get from pieces.
But it's such a nice idea that like, right, we're gonna have this campfire. What can you do at the campfire? You can rest and reheal. You can sit and listen to stories, which is awesome, and you can cook meals. Like it's got a little crafting kind of cooking mini game, not mini game really, but just like putting materials together. And then interestingly, it maxes out at 10 items you can carry.
Right,
now maybe
so there's
that
a limit.
Improves, but I don't know if the limit ever changes. But
it's really interesting because I found early on in the game there was an area where I was like, wow, I used all my items to heal myself, and now there's a real value in collecting those ingredients and using them for cooking. And that was the only time I did it. Like, I wish they'd push that a little bit more for the rest of the game, because for the rest of the game I always had I didn't use up as many resources basically as I did early on.
I think this is a clever counter to the MBZ I'm never going to use anything ever kind of move inventory problem. Is that absolutely. Let's max out at 10, and I would argue battles can go south incredibly fast if you go into those battles with either low HP or low MP. So keeping those topped up when you're going into encounters is very, very important, I'd say. So I feel like I've been encouraged by the game based on the number of times it's gone south unintentionally to like use these items and keep them going, and keep a couple of slots free in case I bump into something that I want to pick up, like I don't know, what's it called, a mushroom soup or whatever.
You always want to have like a revive item handy, and you always want to have like a big full health and mana regen handy. So you'll always keep those as the things you never use until the final boss of the game. But for the most part, like regular ones, I think is good to just keep using them. And eventually you'll get to a point where it's like, oh, my HP is too high now for this low tier item, so I should just eat it and get rid of it. I'll have to cook much higher tier stuff eventually.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's one of the unique things that this game takes from the Mario RPG series is the numbers are not very high, right? We're so used to traditional Final Fantasy games being like, you start the game and Terra's doing 7,000 damage already, and it's like, okay, well, the numbers already start at this, they are only going higher. Whereas here, it's like, you have 9 HP, and the attack's going to do 3 damage, you know? Like, it's kind of nice to have those low numbers. It makes it...
Yeah, I've like played 8 hours and I'm level 7. Like,
right,
it does take a while to level up for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is good.
I just think this game is learning so much from other games in the genre and putting them together in such an impressive way. Is it doing anything that new? Probably not. But
no.
Like it's an incredibly impressive package. And
I mean, I wouldn't call it platforming, but like the traversal of areas is just enjoyable in this game, I found.
It's such a great balance between battling, puzzling, and yet pseudo platforming, because it's kind of exploration, kind of like climbing up, dropping down, working out where to go.
What
next.
items do you have? You have the gust push. Is that one?
That's the only one I've got.
Okay, there's another one.
I think I'm about to get one.
There's one coming up in this area, I believe, that is probably my favorite one in the game.
I think it's a grappling hook, but
it's very, very fun to use, and I enjoyed quite a bit. And actually changes up the way that you can enter combat also, which I think is quite cool. So yeah, there's definitely some nice stuff that you get as you go through it. Obviously music is a big conversation point with this game, but I mean, you know, the Messenger is one of my...
They got the Chrono Trigger guy, right?
Yeah, Yasunori Mitsuda did a few tracks. It's not like the majority of it. The majority is just the original sound team from Sabotage Studio, which, you know, The Messenger is, I think, one of the best indie game soundtracks of all time. And
this game makes me want to play The Messenger. I need to get to that game. But yeah, the soundtrack is stellar. I'm really into the battle themes, and I love just the tone of the save point, and is it the healing at the campfire or the save point? I think it's the healing at the campfire. It's like a and like a flute or something that just kind of tails off at the end. It's just like a real attention to detail with this game that there are no jaggedy edges at all with this game. It feels like everything is very well crafted, very well put together, really polished. And yeah, if you like any kind of traditional style of RPGs, like I do, this is a great one. I think the checkpointing is pretty generous on the whole. I think that there's quite a few save points and campfires, and you can put a campfire down anywhere in the overworld, I want to say, and then in the areas there's frequent ones. Yeah,
I really like the tiny little sprites you get in the overworld. When you're in the area past the mole creatures where the big dragon is, and you go down,
really
and you're like,
cool.
Wow, the pixel art there is really...
And you've got like that
amazing.
area where you're jumping down these waterfalls, and like you can actually swim in this game. And the animation for swimming is just so impressive, where they kind of swim vertically in this weird kind of way. It's
yeah, that's the blend of technology, right? Where the water effects is just like more modern stuff combined with the pixel art to just to create something that just feels really nice and just looks amazing. So
yeah. So barring like a big grand overarching story, which I feel like is the main thing most of these JRPGs hit it out the park, it's doing everything else so impressively well. And I know that Prince of Persia is coming out, but I would like to get quite far in this game before that game comes out. Probably won't beat it, but
you're making good time with it. You know,
I'm like 8.5 hours in. I'll probably play at least another 8.5, 10 hours before Prince of Persia comes out, so 18 hours or so. I think the game's like 28 hours and maybe 34 if you do extra, according to how long to beat.
Yes.
I'm feeling quite keen to do the extra stuff as it stands, but we'll see how I feel when I get there.
Oh yeah, I looked up what you have to do. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff you have to do. The extra stuff is very cool, but I felt I got the experience out of it just watching a YouTube video, as opposed to doing it myself. But yeah, I think it took me 26 hours or something like that.
Right.
You get to a point where you're like, oh, the game's wrapping up now. And it's like, no, you have 7 more hours actually, which I actually enjoy because I think the back 7 hours are quite strong in this game. So
interesting.
So yeah, it's a cool kind of end and all that sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of your thoughts on it.
Now like Golden Sun out on
the
Switch Online. Like I need to get to that as well some year.
Yeah, there's a lot of Golden Sun DNA in the, I would say, exploration and puzzle solving of this game.
Definitely. Yeah,
the gustability is very much like it's a Zelda kind of style of puzzle, but that's very much what Golden Sun was doing, right? There's like a hand ability in Golden Sun that pushes blocks that is very similar to what they're doing here. So I feel like if you are vibing with that, then Golden Sun probably will work as well.
The puzzles so far are perfect. They're really not that challenging, but they're still very satisfying, and that's the important part. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's good stuff. I love it.
Great. Yeah, I quickly identified it as a Bally game, and I'm glad to see that I'm being proven right so far.
This was literally the next game I was going to play last year. This game, 100%, as things stand, would probably be getting into that top 10 somewhere.
That's kind of why I wanted to push for it for our top 10 at the end of the year.
Even though it didn't make your personal top 10,
no,
I think in the Bally year, it made the
I predicted the future, and I was like, Bally would push for this on this list, so let's put it in there, basically. So, good stuff. All right, Bally. My last game I want to talk about, it kind of ties into my resolution for this year, which is playing more old games, specifically games on 3DS, one of which I have to play now after that thing we did last time with the fortune cookie. But there's been a game that I've been meaning to play for a very long time that a lot of people have said a lot of good things about. I remember back when it came out on RFN, James Jones had his third game of the year and stuff like that. So a lot of people have talked very highly of Attack of the Friday Monsters. So a little bit of history here. There is a series in Japan called Boku no Natsuyasumi, which is it's basically kind of summer adventure is kind of the title of the series if you were to put it into English. It's like My Summer Vacation is basically the name of it. And what these games are is they're basically an attempt to capture what it's like to be a kid in Japan in summer. It's a very kind of low gameplay focused, very vibes based kind of style of game. And I can't remember the name of the creator of this series, but this series got recent popularity through a guy called Tim Rogers. Tim Rogers used to work for Kotaku, and he did big videos at Kotaku that did very well. He went off on his own, started his own Patreon, all that sort of stuff, like a lot of people have done. And he has a YouTube channel called Action Button. And Action Button, it focuses on like very niche, weird Japanese games and does literally 6-hour video essays on them. So he put out a video, I want to say 2 years ago, because I remember when one of my colleagues joined our company, he's like very deep into lots of niche stuff, and he was telling me how him and his friend had been, watching this 6-hour epic video from Tim Rogers that was on Boku no Natsuyasumi, this kind of vacation summer series, because none of them have really been localized for Western markets. All the original series have always been Japan only, and the only way you can play them is via fan translations. There are 2 games that are now available in English. One of them is this, Attack of the Friday Monsters. The other one is a Crayon Shin-chan game. So you must have seen Shin-chan before, Bally. He's the little tiny boy Japanese cartoon. There's a Crayon Shin-chan game that is in a part of this series, basically. It's like a spin-off that does this gameplay, but with that character instead. And that's on Switch, which I'm actually kind of interested in. But I would say, like, what this really is about is just an experiencing of a vibe and a culture and a world. And I think one of my favorite things about Attack of the Friday Monsters, which to set it up is basically you're this kid who lives in this small town, and your parents are always telling you, oh, be careful at Friday because the monsters come out. And so there's this light kind of fantasy element to it, but you run around and you do little side quests by talking to people in the village, and you have a bunch of friends, and there's a little mini game to it that's kind of like this card game that is kind of lightly used as part of the gameplay, but is probably the most video game thing about it. But it is more about just like exploring the space and walking from screen to screen, and just figuring out what's going on. And much like PlayStation 1 games that use pre-rendered backgrounds, this also does that, where you walk from one screen to another and the camera perspective changes, and it's like now it's all the way zoomed out and you can see more of a top-down view of the town. Now it's very close to you and you can run towards the camera. Now you're going under a bridge, and so you see the underneath of the bridge, and then you go out the other side and it changes back to a side-on perspective. So as you navigate it, you you become very familiar with what each of these screens looks like. And there's a kind of a coziness to it of this very small space, this dense area that you explore and you kind of figure out. And it's nice on 3DS because you have the bottom screen where you can see the map, and so you can figure out where people are. It very handily puts little markers on there as well to be like, this is where you should go to do the next part of this little quest that you have to go on. And there's a little bit of exploration stuff where you pick up these little glimmers on the ground, these shiny bits on the ground. One of my favorite things in video games is shiny bits. I made a whole video on Ni no Kuni 2 about how that's like the best part of the game, is just picking up shiny bits on the floor. Those are the things that you kind of collect to make your cards. So you find like 5 of these pieces, and then you can create like a monster card, and you can use it to battle your friends. And there's this very cute interaction that happens where it's like, you have to beat your friend at cards, and the person who wins becomes the boss of the other person, and that other person becomes the servant. And when you become the boss, then you can say the magic spell, and it causes your friend to fall over, and then you tell them to get up. So it's very much a kind of childlike thing of like, oh, I'm the boss of you for today type of deal. It really evokes that kind of childlike wonder of being in, it's what, like, you know, Miyamoto talks about, of like, he used to explore the woods and stuff like that. That's basically what this game is. I mean, I'm surprised Nintendo haven't got a series like this where it's just about walking around a town or, you know, charming little Japanese neighborhood, because that's the inspiration for so many of Nintendo's games. And yeah, it feels like it nails it. I think for me, from a sound perspective, more so than anything, like the transition between screens often is accompanied by a change in the way that things sound around you. So there's a river that you have a bridge that you cross over, and so like the footsteps going across that, but then you turn to the right going down that bridge, and it cuts to a side-on perspective, and the side-on perspective, the camera is actually close to the water, and so you very clearly hear the rushing water as it goes past. And there's just a real care and attention to detail. It's also really nice in 3D because obviously they were using the system back then for that purpose. And so, like, your parents live in a laundromat, and like you are, you know, that's your home. And so every time you go in there, you see in the foreground they're actually just kind of JPEGs or PNGs, I would say, of like clothes hanging. But when you use it with 3D, it creates that kind of feeling of depth, even though you can tell they're basically images just put in front. But I think there's almost a charming low budget quality to that stuff that I think is quite effective. And yeah, and I think the writing's very nice. It's super charming, and it's only 3 hours again. A very, very short little experience. So the developer's called Millennium Kitchen, and it definitely has made me want to check out the rest of this series, because I think the other games in the series are kind of less fantastical, even more grounded in just the mundanity of just, you know, being in a Japanese countryside, you know.
It sounds like the perfect game that would fit into a Miyamoto story, where he's like, and when I was growing up in Kyoto as a small boy, and my parents would say, look out for the monsters on Friday, and I'd run around the town, and then I decided to make a game about it. I
mean, yeah, it's very interesting, because the game opens with not a statement, but like it's a, you know, white text on a black background, and it said like in the whenever it was, I think it was like the 40s, right, when World War II happened. That's right, I know history. It was like back then, you know, the threat of nuclear war, and like the whole kind of Godzilla and like all that stuff is born out of a threat of nuclear war, right? Really is what it comes from. And it kind of frames the story in that way, and in some ways, like it like there is fantastical elements to this game. It gets a little bit loopy at the end, but there is an idea of industry, right? And industry is very much this is something I wrote about in my dissertation at university, was Tolkien and industry, and how
he loved referencing Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely. We should change this to a Lord of the Rings podcast, frankly. But I mean, Tolkien was very much a naturalist. He loved the environment, he loved the countryside, and he was very much
anti-industrialist,
very much an anti-industrialist, like hated all that stuff and thought it was ruining England and everything along those lines. And this game kind of leans into that idea of like, to some degree, the monsters are the kind of smokestacks from industry that you can see in the sky that create these shapes that are, from a kid's perspective, they're monsters, but really it is just it's a personification of what industry is doing to Japan and what it's doing to modern culture versus what everything used to be, right? And so you have on the one hand this kind of rural kind of paradise, but then you feel the encroaching technology and the way it's starting to bleed into the simple lives that these people lead, right? Which I think is very interesting. And yeah, I think it's very, very cool. But the worst thing about it is I talk about it here, I recommend it. You can't buy it anymore. It was only on 3DS, and that store being gone is such a shame now because, that was the purpose of me going and buying all these games. Is like, I want to make sure that I get these experiences before they go away, and I'm very glad I did with Attack of the Friday Monsters.
See, I'm just really selfish. I knew you were going to do this, and then the experience that you had, and you were like, oh, Bally, this is the best game. I know if I had to, I could borrow your 3DS for 3 hours and experience this game.
Yeah, but, probably. I don't know. Borrowing a 3DS is a little bit more than like having a cartridge. It'd be much easier if there's a cartridge. You could probably track this down. Well, you probably can't because this was released as part of the Guild series. This is something I've talked about in the past. Guild 01 and 02 were basically 3DS mini games. Not mini games, like this, a 3-hour short game. Small 3DS projects made by famous Japanese developers, right? So Suda51 made one, and Millennium Kitchen made this, and all these other people made different games. And in Japan, they had physical versions on carts that you could get, at least for the first set, I believe. So in Japan, you could probably track down a physical version, but again, it's going to be in Japanese, so there's no way to actually enjoy the narrative parts of it. So yeah, I mean, in the future, I can imagine this being a lot easier to do. Like, at some point, Bally, I'll probably be able to, like, hack a 3DS and get it on there. Probably, like, give you a hacked 3DS and be like, here are all the 3DS games you
I
missed.
hear the Switch, too. It's going to have 3D, and they're going to bring back the 3DS eShop. And it's all... I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, totally. 100% happening. But yeah, I'm sure there'll be a way to enjoy this. But if not, I'm sure that there will be other Millennium Kitchen games in this style that will probably be worth playing eventually. And it's one of those weird things where I will probably have to seek out fan translations and, ROMs and stuff like that to play the rest of the series. But there'll be ways of doing this in the future. You
love stuff like that, though.
I fucking love that. I love that so much.
The playing part will be like another 3 hours. Doing the project will be like 4 weeks.
At least, a minimum. Yeah. Like, I'm going for it. Like, what was that game I did recently? It wasn't Legend of the River King. It was the Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls. That Game Boy game, the Nintendo one that never got a translation. I recently did a bunch of work to get that to work on my Steam Deck. Haven't played it yet. Probably won't for 6 years. But it's there and ready with the fan translation. All right, it's ready to go. So I'm prepared. Okay. But yeah, no. I mean, if you did download this before 3DS stuff went away, very much recommend it. It's a really cool time, and yeah, very charming. And I just love playing the 3DS. The other thing I've been doing is playing Theater Rhythm again on my 3DS. I played a lot of it last year, but didn't kind of tick it off my list because I'm like, I am finished with Theater Rhythm when I've played every single song in this game. I've now done, I think, over 100 so far, and there's like 200, so I'm still got quite a lot to go.
Nice.
But yeah, that, like, having a 3DS next to my bedside has been very nice last few weeks. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do more. It's a great system. It's so good.
It's a good system. It's a very good system. It will go down in Nintendo history as one of the good ones.
Absolutely. So there you go. But that is going to do us for the first part of the show. We'll be back, though, after the break, taking some of your questions. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of today's show. It is time for emails. It's been a while. This always happens.
A little time, yeah.
We get Game of the Year, then we got to do our predictions, and it's like 3 episodes in a row. That's like 6 weeks. So it's been a little while since we've done emails. But we always need more. So if you would like to send an email into the show, please email thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That is thisnintendolife@gmail.com. or send a comment, a question over in our Discord server. We have a channel dedicated to emails. It is called Emails. You can post it in there and join a community of over 150 TNL listeners. The community's been pretty active recently, so definitely check that out.
Absolutely.
Our first email this time is from Ryan P, who says, "Dear MVZ and Bally, congrats on 10 years of podcasting. Crazy to think how much has happened in the world of video games within all that time frame. Multiple console generations, Nintendo merging their handheld and console spaces into one, and plenty of innovations for software and hardware. My question for today is, where do you think gaming will be in 10 more years? VR or augmented reality be more mainstay? Will consoles continue to innovate, or will it be more iterative power increases? Love to hear your thoughts. Have a powerful day."
Yeah, that nod at the end, I realized, is the thing I said at the end of our practice recording for the very first episode. Like, my sign-off was, "Have a powerful day." I was like, okay.
Not the worst outro. I think
No,
that for a
but-
first attempt, that's not bad. That's pretty
Yeah, but like, we never really adopted a like "fuck capitalism, go home" sign-off.
I mean,
right?
I would
Like,
love to have adopted that one, but
I mean, it's a very strong
we
one.
definitely need something.
Yeah,
I've
don't
gone 10
know.
years with that one. I think we're
No, I know. I was going to say, do we need one? We've never had one, but because I think I was like, what is that referencing? And I was like, oh right, because we put that at the end of the 10-year episode,
I
right?
completely missed that. That is hilarious.
And I think the last thing I said was "have a powerful day," just to like go on the like now you're playing with power thing, which is quite funny. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to come up with something. But
Yeah.
in any case, predicting the future, always a thing that we're very good at, Bally. We just know exactly what's happening.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be some kind of convergence here at some point, right? Like, I feel like every generation people are like, well, this is the last hardware generation. It's all going to the cloud. It's all going to be in the internet, and that's all we're going to do. And I feel like 10 years is actually a long enough time for that to happen. If you think about, I mean, I would say the previous 10 years we've just had is less forward stepping than the 10 years before that in terms of jumps, right? Like the amount and the significance of the jumps in terms of what type of games there
I think
are.
the natural evolution of the video game industry maturing is the jumps are getting smaller.
Yeah, it's like, what's that? There's that theorem, or there's something like that about like hardware power or something. Power increases exponentially every year or something. But I don't know if that is slowing down or not. There's a whole chips thing with like what you call them, like silicon graphics or silicon chip stuff. I don't know what I'm fucking talking about. I'm just talking out my ass. But there's some theory about like every year this specific like technology in terms of like computing hardware exponentially gets more and more, and so it's how quickly we're going to get to crazy stuff. Which, I mean, we're already talking about AI. It's a big conversation that has been a large part of like last year's kind of just tech stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, we had NFTs and they kind of disappeared, and so all the tech bros are now going after AI, which is the next main thing, which I feel like is gonna be something that's gonna impact games pretty significantly, right?
Definitely.
I think it's gonna have some kind of role to play. It's really weird though, because the term AI we've used in the game space for so long that it's like it's being co-opted in this other way for this other kind of thing, and it also just like a banner term for so many things. It's not really well defined, I would say, which is
similar to like everything before. It's kind of one of those terms that's used by people when a very small number of people probably actually understand
exactly
what it is and how it works.
Yes, yeah. Lots of lay people talking about AI without really knowing what AI is fundamentally. And not to say that I do, but I'm not going to go out there and talk about it. So I feel like there is a encroaching tech of that type that will be a factor in games. I mean, it's already starting to happen with. I don't know if you heard about the story with the Finals, that game that I've been playing, the first-person shooter.
No.
All the announcers in that game are AI voiced.
Oh, God. I heard
which
about
is
it accidentally happening for one character in Prince of Persia. That's very
Oh,
different.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's they made a conscious decision to do that, which is I don't know, it's a scary thing. It's like, hey, I mean, we always, talk about, and I think there's lots of, if we look back at a sci-fi kind of literature over the past 20 years or 40 years or whatever, if you go back even further than that to like Isaac Asimov and stuff like that, I mean, all these things of eventually machines will be sentient, right? And they will start taking human jobs and all that stuff, which, industry and stuff we were talking about before definitely had a big impact on working class people and the way that jobs were done. And I feel like this new technology is going to have an even bigger impact in terms of like modern kind of work culture and what's going to happen with it. So
Definitely.
There's going to be a lot of knock-on effects. But I don't know, how do you think it will kind of shake out in 10 years' time? Will we be kind of like having it as a core part of what we do?
I mean, as we've described, I think 10 years in video games is actually a much shorter time than we might think otherwise. And I think
it's basically one console generation.
I think it's getting shorter because of the length of console generations and the time it takes to make games. Like we've talked previously about how now there's going to be like one Last of Us game on the PS5, probably. Like that's just one game, like there's going to be one game from each series on that one system, and then the next system will have one game from that series, because most games are gradually taking like 5, 6, 7 years, sometimes longer to develop. So I think that's one part. I think the thing about cloud gaming, which is kind of another big thing that people are moving towards, I think the thing I struggle with is the argument is cloud gaming will take over because people won't have to have consoles. They can just game on their phones. They can game on their laptops. They can game on all these other devices without the big fixed costs it arguably takes to get into the video game industry. And to my knowledge of cloud gaming, and maybe this I need to read up more on who's actually playing cloud gaming. To my knowledge, it's only the most hardcore of the hardcore that even play cloud gaming. And people who will already own an Xbox, a PlayStation, a gaming PC, and they'll say, hey, I'll give that a go. I'll play it on my Steam Deck or my phone or my laptop or something else. To my knowledge, the idea that non-gamers, normies, people out in the mainstream are in any way inclined to play games on existing streaming services, whether that's xCloud or Netflix or something else, I just don't feel like the pickup is there right now. And I don't know where that pickup would necessarily come from. So my point is like, yes, it could go mainstream, but right now it's only the most hardcore of the hardcore using it. So how do you flip that dynamic on its head?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that happens with a lot of technology, arguably, right? Like, Tim, at Kind of Funny, talks about the Apple Watch all the time.
Right.
Like, when it first came out, it was this incredibly niche thing for only the most rich of rich people, and now everybody has one, right? There is always going to be hardcore adopters day one for new tech, and those will be the people who will eventually tell their friends about it, and slowly over time, it starts to filter out to the mainstream.
Right.
And so I think there is a argument to be made for once cloud streaming becomes a viable option, then, I mean, you look at the TV and film landscape and it is 90% taken up by streaming services, right? Like no one has physical hardware anymore. It's the same with music, right? It's all streaming. Every single person.
But gaming
in the
is
modern
different
day,
to those two, right?
It's very different because there's such an importance placed on
latency,
yeah. And like none of those other things suffer from that, because it doesn't matter if there's a delay between the server and Netflix. You'll never experience that. You're only experiencing what they're sending to you, and you're experiencing it through a passive medium where you don't have any interactivity. Likewise with music, I would say that I've run into some stuff with music before where latency has been an issue, but that's like me listening to something on wireless headphones that then causes a delay when I am trying to play like a guitar thing along to it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where that kind of comes into play, and that's the only thing, kind of example I can think of, versus games where, like, yeah, if it doesn't respond properly, like, that can cause a whole bunch of issues. It can cause motion sickness issues for me. It can cause just a lot of disconnection from what you're doing, and I think that is the biggest stumbling block, really. The question is, like, how much does that matter to normal mainstream people who don't really feel or understand or know that that's happening? Because, I mean, there's so many people out there who don't know what 30 and 60 frames are and can't tell the difference, right? Like, there's got to be lots of people out there who play a game through a cloud service, and for us, it's like, wow, this is laggy as hell.
Yeah.
But for them, they're like, oh, no, I don't see any difference. So
is there a comparison to be made where the idea of us playing a game like Fortnite with virtual analog sticks is completely an anathema. It's like there's no way we'd ever want to even try that when the reality is the majority of Fortnite players are probably using virtual joystick analog sticks.
Yeah,
so
I
like,
think to some degree, yeah.
Something that we feel very strongly about with like latency and streaming and the games that we like to play, whether that's countering in a game, in a third-person action game or something like, does that matter to the wider audience? I don't know.
Yeah, totally. So I feel like if you deliver it to them in a affordable, understandable package, like you have to have basically Game Pass needs to become a thing that you download on a television through a smart TV, right? Like, and I think that's what they're moving towards. But like one day there will be that service and it will be on any TV. The biggest barrier here is that if you do want to get into it, you still need a controller. Controllers are always going to be a barrier to entry for anybody.
And they're going up in price, and like everything else that's hardware, like that, they are made from finite materials with all these semi-precious metals that just kind of are pretty finite and are used in all of our technology.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I guess you could make the argument for like reading is somewhat different in that way as well, because like if you want to do the digital approach to reading, you have to buy an e-reader, right? But then that's the one thing you use for all of that, versus most people who buy televisions mostly use it for other purposes, which is to watch stuff or to stream stuff from different services. But you know, like there's not an insignificant number of people who watch YouTube and Twitch and stuff on their television now, and that was unheard of years ago. But now we're in an era where that exists and is very viable. But yeah, there is, I think with games, there's always going to be a couple more steps that makes it harder for that true mainstream audience to get into it. Until we have a day where, and Nintendo were kind of trying to start this with the Wii, right? Like they made a controller that was like a TV remote so that normal people could understand it. Until we get to a point in time where all television remotes are also game controllers and every TV you buy comes with a remote that is basically also a controller, you're not going to move the needle, I think, in terms of the big wide appeal, right? But I think that can happen. I think it's very possible for games to become such a part of what you do on a television for everybody that whatever controller comes with your TV is like, oh yeah, I can use that. And it could be like a power user thing where if you really are into it, and there's lots of people who are super into TVs who have like hardcore remotes that they program themselves and they have extra buttons on them. It could be a thing for like, if you actually are into games, then you go out and you buy an Xbox controller or something like that, right? Yeah, it's the only way I can see it happening, because otherwise it's difficult.
I think that argument of like, where do people get an Xbox controller or a PS5 controller or whatever, I think the simplest argument to that in 10 years is they're just going to get it with an Xbox, or they're just going to get it with a PS6 or whatever. Like, I still think where we live in a world where it's all about the platform, and if you look at a company like Xbox, the platform is made up of PC and Xbox and streaming. I think as long as Xbox, as in the console box, is part of that argument to widen the platform, they will sell a box to widen that platform. And this is the same with Sony. I think that there's going to be a valuable space for a physical console as long as there are millions of people willing to buy physical consoles. And what's one reason? I think the latency argument is a big reason to buy that physical console. And I think as games are getting more fast-paced and first-person shooter-based and all these other things where latency would wreck your day, I think there's still going to be a lot of value in having that home console, even if it is just because it's the easiest place to get a games controller, gamepad. Like that could, I still think in 10 years time, yes, sales might have dropped on physical consoles, but I still think they're still going to sell in the millions for sure.
I think in the next 10 years, we'll have 2 more Nintendo platforms at the least, right? Because we're going to get something new very soon. Yeah. And then within 10 years, we'll have whatever the follow-up to that is. I think that just generally, right, this question of will consoles continue to innovate or will it be more iterative power increases? I think from Nintendo's standpoint, I think they're the most likely to innovate. But what do you think about the other platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo won't innovate this time, but they probably
might do next
will
time,
want to next time. Will the other platforms innovate? I think that when you compare them to Nintendo, so I was just telling you about this Nintendo, this sort of like business finance podcast that I was listening to. So Caroline's brother works in finance, and he recommended this over Christmas, and I was like, okay, I'll listen to it. History of Nintendo sounds good. And the two guys who went back into deep dive on Nintendo's history, and they made the point that there is no example in Nintendo's history of them not gambling. Like, they always gamble. Always. The only time they made a safe bet actually came up short. And it's actually the example I gave you of that game I've completely forgotten the name of.
Radar Scope.
Radar Scope, which was Nintendo's attempt to copy Space Invaders in the United States and flopped massively. That was the one time they tried to do something safe, and it backfired massively. So when you've got one company that is so hell-bent on rolling the dice and trying new things versus Sony and Microsoft, who... Are they innovators? Like,
I think they try and get to the edge of it, right? Like, Sony are more prone to that because I think of their Japanese heritage to some degree, right? Like, the DualSense is a really cool piece of technology from, like, all the shit they've pumped into it, but then nobody uses any of it. You could argue that for Nintendo as well, of, like, Nintendo pump a lot of shit into their consoles and then nobody really uses it, but I feel like they at least Sony does, at least with PS5, Sony have tried something, whereas I'd argue Xbox have just been like, let's just do just the Xbox One controller, just make it a bit better. That's what they did.
Yeah, and innovation, that's like a hardware example of innovation, but I'd even go as far as like software-wise, where's the first party innovation? Like it's still Nintendo, right? I feel like Sony and Microsoft and all these companies are in the interest of their shareholders and their board, obviously. But like, I think that the safe bet with Sony and Microsoft is keep doing what you're doing. And like, what's refreshing, I think what's innovative about Microsoft is Game Pass. That's the innovation, arguably. Now, it's innovative in the video game space when it's been done for Netflix for over a decade.
Yeah, they're just copying TV.
They're just copying
stuff,
a format, a platform format. But like, that is innovative, and what I think is exciting in the next 10 years is, will we still be paying £70 for the new Sony first party game, or is that going to be the biggest shift, is that Sony falls into the streaming system and, you know, we're not going to be buying day one hard copies of all these games, you know? Like, I think that's probably where I think Microsoft have the upper hand, is that they have innovated a long time. Not when Game Pass 5 years ago, 6 years ago. That was the innovation then, and I feel like I don't think either of those companies are going to innovate too much more, other than things we know about in the next 10 years. I'd be shocked. Yeah,
I think a streaming only future for games, I think, is unlikely. I think it also is incredibly scary when you think about like the way in which music has been so screwed up, the music industry, by streaming becoming the only thing people do. No one pays for any music anymore, right? No one pays for TV and movies. They just do their subscription to whatever platform for however long. And that really makes you beholden to the platform. Like, whatever Netflix says is going to be popular is going to be popular. Whatever, you know, if Game Pass becomes the only thing in the world, whatever Microsoft lets on the service is the only thing that gets any kind of attention. And that's scary in a world where 14,000 games release on Steam every year, and there are more games than we can count, and attention is the hardest thing even today. So taking away avenues for people to break through and do interesting, innovative stuff, like, I think, honestly, it stifles creativity in a way, because it means that you're playing to the whims of a platform and you're trying to please an algorithm more than you are people, which I think is just not a good thing. I don't think we will see streaming become the only thing, because with platforms like Nintendo, who are probably not against it, but I think they know that their value is in IP and in selling IP.
Yeah.
And Valve, who as a platform also just want to sell games to you directly, I think that that's going to be a bastion of saving. I'd say Microsoft and Sony are far more likely to fall into the streaming stuff, which makes their platforms a little bit wobbly in some ways, of like, then how do you do well on those platforms, right?
Yeah,
It's very tricky.
Oof. Well, I think we're going to keep coming back to this question because I think it is interesting in this year where Nintendo are hopefully revealing a new system, and it's fun to look back at video game history and then compare that to where we are today and what was the innovations then versus what is going to come, and it feels pretty uninspiring at the moment in all things considered when you compare it to some of the leaps and bounds made previously, but I mean
at the end of the day, Nintendo are always the most interesting company to follow with hardware because you just have no fucking idea what they're going to do.
Yes.
I know we're all sitting here being like, it's a slam dunk, Switch 2, just call it that, just make a better one. They're not going to fucking do that.
There's going to be that weird ass quirk. It's the equivalent of Wiimotes or Street Pass or a dual screen or 3D. Like you can that's just the last 4 consoles. You can keep going. There's just these weird ass innovations on systems. Like I think the 3D on the 3DS is a great one because the DS was a damn successful console.
Yeah.
And then they just added a thing to that existing successful format. Like that is wild. So yeah, Switch is a successful system, successful platform. But yeah, they're going to add something weird. You just know it. And it's going to be a projector that looks at the ceiling.
Let's switch up. There we go. All sorted. Good stuff.
Right. Our next email is from Chad, who's from Nebraska. Says, "Hi guys, earlier this year I finished binging all 10 years of NYPP/TNL, condensing the entire span into about 1.5 years. It was great, especially since I had recently bought a 3DS and my Wii U needed some good recommendations. So congrats and thanks for all the great content. I really look forward to the new shows every 2 weeks. Changing subjects. What would you think about doing a short worst of the year list? Maybe your bottom 3. I had this idea after finishing Gorokoa, which I would not say is a bad game. I mean, I played and finished it, but what the heck did I just play? I would put Severed on my list as well. Again, not bad, but I never need another literal slasher combat game. Thanks again and happy holidays, Chad in Nebraska."
Damn, Chad just like dunking on some of my favorite
on a couple
games.
of Emmys and favorites right there.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, listening to all 10 years in 1.5 years is definitely a thing to do.
That's something that we would do in terms of our podcast listening.
That's what I did. Like, when I first got into podcasts, I listened to all of Radio Free Nintendo, which at that time was only about 3 or 4 years of podcasts, but I did all of them and got through the backlog. But yeah, doing 10 years is quite a lot all in one span. But I guess because we're every 2 weeks, it's a little bit less.
That helps.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's still a lot of hours of audio to go through. But I think it's interesting though, because you do get talking about decades time, right? You just get an entire generation of just changes and things and seeing what happened and how things evolve and tastes change over time, all that sort of stuff. So very interesting. This is an interesting thing, like thinking about bad games and how do you talk about bad games and do you want to talk about bad games? I think in recent years, I think this is definitely inspired by listening to Into the Aether podcast I mentioned many times. It's a show that I really love because it is very much about positivity in a good way. Like, they don't shy away from critiquing stuff and things like that, but they only bring games to the show if they enjoyed them and want to talk about them and like have something good to say. And I feel like there's a lot of cynicism in game podcasts and stuff like that, right? And there's a lot of people dunking on stuff and having hot takes, and I don't know, there's a point at which I eventually was like, yeah, I don't really feel like doing that anymore, you know? Like, I feel like there's a negativity cycle to it that is just not great. And like on this show, I'd rather bring stuff or talk about stuff that I like and want to talk about and I'm passionate about. And I think that leads to better conversations, more interesting conversations. That's not to say we shouldn't critique stuff, because I think that's very important, right? Like, if there is something out there that like I have issues with and I want to bring them up and I want to address them, I think that's important, but always contextualizing it within like not just dunking on something for the sake of it. And yeah, I think that just makes conversations a bit more valuable overall. And it's why I think it's a bit more difficult to go back to older podcast episodes of like talk about the fucking Mario Galaxy and Wind Waker stuff. It's just a lot of just aggressiveness that I'm like, probably should tone that down. So
I get that. I'm not James Jones. I don't take any pleasure in playing a bad game. I don't intend to play bad games. Whenever I play a game that arguably is bad, it is normally a game I've gone into with high hopes, high expectations, and it has fallen flat. I don't think those games are bad games. They're just not games that live up to the potential that I was hoping they would. Right. And I honestly think in an industry that is incredibly dominated by corporations, and hey, we're a Nintendo podcast, we love talking about that corporation, no denying that. But in an industry where there are so few really big platforms for indie games to shine and to, really have a big fuss made of them and actually say, hey, this is a game that has been made outside of traditional development circles and is made by like 2 people and it is fantastic and we need to talk about it. That's where the argument for, hey, we should talk about bad games, I think falls flat on its head, because every moment we're talking about a bad game could be a better moment where we're talking about the greatness of some indie game that we want to shine a light on, that a lot of other podcasts or other streamers or whoever aren't shining the light on. And I think that as much as we have praised Nintendo and criticized Nintendo quite rightly, and I'm much more happy to take a flying shot at a corporation than an indie game, I think we've also really tried to shine a light on top indie games that we love and want others to play. And I think that is, we have a platform with this podcast, and I think that talking about bad games on purpose, as it were, and like a worst of the year, I think that's maybe a miss, not the best use of our platform, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know, there's a curiosity sometimes with games like that, or even like if you're going back to something older and you want to just have a look at it and see what it's like. I think there's interesting conversations to be had, but there is feel like if we were to go back and play the original Legend of Zelda, I think it wouldn't be very interesting for us to just talk about all the things that have not aged well about it and are just bad.
Exactly, yeah.
And focus more on like, well, what was it doing for the time? Why did people like it back then? And kind of recontextualize it in that way to make it work. And yeah, usually if I'm not really into a game, if I find I'm not having a good time with it, I'll usually just like abandon it. I'll as they say, DNF it, Bally, which I learned from the book community, but apparently is a thing that is in running and stuff like that, has been around for ages. But I wouldn't learn it from book people. But I feel like I do that more often now. So there are certain games that I've played that I just won't bring to the show. I just won't talk about them because I don't feel like there's anything to add to the conversation. And I think just saying I hate this thing is just, I don't know, I just doesn't feel great, basically. So I think probably the angle would be just not focusing on that stuff. I think there's a comedy you can get sometimes from some of that stuff, especially if like the game is like hilariously bad. Like I think that's kind of the James Jones thing you're talking about, where he seeks out things that are funny because they are so bad, right?
He genuinely gets pleasure in both the playing process and the talking about his playing process, and I personally wouldn't enjoy either that much. Not that I've necessarily tried it a ton, but I don't know, it's just different taste.
And I think coming across, I think like worst game of the year list is more like what is the thing I played this year that just didn't really resonate with me, or the thing that I didn't kind of vibe, like had issues that I just couldn't get over, that I just didn't want to, like, I mean, I feel like Sports Story is an interesting example where we both really were excited for that game and wanted it to be great. And then it was just like kind of just a disappointment in the end. And I guess we kind of let that game have it in a lot of ways, which, totally. But I feel like there's a context to it as well, and kind of like coming to it in a way that's showing what our expectations were versus what was delivered. And to some degree, I would say there's like a warning aspect to it of like, hey, by the way, don't spend your money on this thing because you might have been interested in it, but actually it's probably not worth doing. So,
I think it would be really weird if neither of us played Sports Story and then didn't talk about it on the show. So in that sense, I think we are keeping in the interest of what we have loved in the past in Golf Story, and then played the
Yeah.
sequel that we were excited about day one, and shared our thoughts on that. And yeah, there was definitely no malicious intent with any of that, and it was just an honest representation of what we thought of that game. And I think that falls more into the kind of almost reviewer category. And what I mean by that is, say you're working at a big website and you're given the game to review, it is important that you are honest about your feelings with that game. And I feel like in a way, Sports Story falls into that category, where there are certain sequels to certain games that we love on this show, like Tears of the Kingdom. We have to play that game. It's a Nintendo game. It's the sequel to our favorite game of all time. We have done top 50 lists. We have to play this game. Regardless of whether Tears of the Kingdom is great or awful, we are going to be as honest as we can about that game. And there are just certain games like that we have to play on the show, because it's in our interests, both that we want to play the sequel, but we also think a lot of listeners will be interested in what we think of the sequel. And Sports Story definitely falls into that category. So in that sense, it's almost like a game that's come onto our desk that we have to review in a way, in a kind of like review website.
As close as we get to that kind of thing, basically.
Right. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like, not glamorize it, but like having this almost like worst of the year kind of as a list. I think it's interesting because it's the type of content that, especially on platforms like YouTube, performs exceedingly well, right? Back in the day, like those kind of top 10 worst games of the year would often get more views than best game of the year. And I think that's just it's because YouTube is built on a negativity cycle a lot of the times, and controversy, and they want people to get angry. And that's why, comment sections are the driver for all these things. And you'll always get people disagreeing with people's opinions and stuff. And driving hatred is so much easier than the opposite. So I feel like that's what people kind of lean into. So yeah, I probably wouldn't do that, but it's an interesting thing to discuss, to think about, and appreciate the question on it. But
thanks,
I think that is going to do us for this episode. Bally, we've got one more piece of business to attend to.
You remembered?
I did, yeah, thank God. For the first time in a while. We have to do what is called Game Trade, which we talked about at the start of the show. So last year, Bally, you gave me Metroid Prime, and I gave you Sonic Mania. And I finished Metroid Prime. You did not finish Sonic Mania.
I had a falling out with Sonic Mania.
You had a falling out with Sonic Mania.
This happened. So last time I played Sonic Mania, I gave my thoughts on the first 7 zones. And then MBZ very wisely was like, just go to one of the earlier levels, grind for some lives, and you'll be fine. And I was like, you know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to just go to a previous level. I found this little video on YouTube, showed me that I just need to go to this spot in this level, and then I'm going to get 99 lives, and I'm just going to play the rest of the game. For some reason, in Sonic Mania, you cannot change the level you're on without starting a new game or going into like some, what's it called, like glitched out mode that you put the code in to get to like this mode where you can select levels and play as Knuckles, and it's all a bit glitchy and weird. And I was just like, I just want to play as Sonic. And so here's the thing, I was on the water level, I think it's zone 7, and there's time limits on you drowning, which isn't fun. And then I got to the boss of Act 1, and the boss does multiple things I really disliked about Sonic Mania, which was so you can drown on top of the fact that there are like these walls that you can get squished by. Being squished in Sonic Mania is insta-death. And then on top of all that, it's got the live system, which means that you go back to, you game over when you run out of lives, obviously. Yeah. So I was like, this is not fair. Like I just want to get my 99 lives. So I just like, I'm sorry, MBZ, I can't do this. I'm quitting out Sonic Mania. I'm just not having fun. I enjoyed what I had of these first few levels.
As we call it.
The what?
So, a classic DNF.
DNF.
As we call it,
And now just talking about bad games. I'm just ranting about a game here. But yeah, I just wasn't for me. I need some live system, or I need some knack, or like I need a modern mode that doesn't have lives, or just something like that. I just needed that for this type of game.
Yeah. So this time we're going to see if we can pick something different. And Bally, do you have a game that you are going to give me?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you've not played this game.
Okay.
I think.
Do you have a backup in case I have?
I've got a backup. I've got a couple
right.
of backups.
Okay.
But I even mentioned this game earlier in this call that we've now been in for 2 hours and 41 minutes.
Okay.
That game is Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is one that has been like on a lot of lists back in the day when it came out and
Came out in
around.
2020.
Yes. And yeah, I never got around to
Game of the Year in the DICE Awards for 2021.
Yes, yeah, which was very impressive. Yeah, it's a game I've always been curious about, but I think it's a good pick because it's one of those that I just never would have gotten around to, you know? It's one that I would have like let sit on my backlog forever, and maybe I would have remembered it in a sale at some point, but I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to like pick it up and play it. And I think this was back in the day where like Switch versions of games were quite good. So
it ran really well. Me and Caroline bought this, I think, day one or close to, and we had a really fun time like playing this together on the couch and just like maybe try going there and you know, it's just like it's a very charming puzzle game really, and I really really like it. And there's not many games I've played that are that much like it. And it's also very quaint and very English is another thing. It's like a very unique set. There's like pubs and unique things, and yeah, it's cute. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm excited for that. That'll be good. That'll be enjoyable. Also, I think probably not too long either, right?
I think it's like 7 hours. But
okay,
that was a much better response than Metroid Prime got at this time last year.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's ironic though, right? Because I was like, last year I was like, I'll give Bally something nice and easy, Sonic Mania, just a chill, very easy game. It turned out it was not that. Whereas you were like, I could
get through that game. I just didn't have a good time.
Totally.
It's that kind of like, it's tough.
Well, yeah, I think also I played it a long time ago, and I think this is one of these things with doing this is I find it's less interesting to give you something where I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of enjoyed that back then and I can't really remember much about it, because I feel like it leads to more interesting conversation when it's a game that you have really enjoyed and you want the other person to experience it.
Untitled Goose Game might have been my number 7 game of the year from
you definitely really had a good time with it, and
a lot.
it was up there. So I think that's super interesting. So I'm going to change tack this time. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lean into my bullshit. All right. And we're gonna try something because you know we're on the edge, we're on the precipice. We're on the precipice. So we just got to try something, okay? And you know, it's just a bit of medicine, and we'll see how it goes down. Okay. So I was looking at a lot of things, and I was like, there's one that I really wanted to give you. But you need to fucking play The Forgotten City. It's so fucking good. The problem is it's not on Switch. It's on Switch Online cloud service, service. But I would
just
say
download it on Xbox. And
exactly, I would say play on other, but that's cheating, so it's not allowed. I was going to be like Inscription, but I was like, Bally's going to play that himself. I didn't need to tell him to do that.
I will.
He's going to do that. Then I was like, should we like both play Golden Sun? But then like on this call, even you're like, I'm going to do Golden Sun on my own, just unprompted. So I was like, yeah. So I was looking. Okay, Bally. You know, there's a channel on Discord called Anime Bullshit, you know?
I know, I stay well clear.
You stay well clear of it, you know, someday we have to indoctrinate you into some anime bullshit. So I was looking through some anime bullshit, and I was like, man, all these games are 20 hours long. Like, there's no way to get around it. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. So there's a few. There's one that's 23. There's one that's 25.
That's fine.
There's one that's 30.
Okay.
The one I'm going to give you is 25.
That's okay.
The one I'm going to give you, because I think, honestly, this was like my introduction to anime bullshit in a lot of ways.
Wow, okay.
I'm going to give you
high praise.
The original Danganronpa Trigger Happy.
Oh, yeah. I have been meaning to jump on some of MBZ's anime bullshit for a while. As you say, a bit like Untitled Goose Game for you. I was never going to get around to it. So
no, you weren't.
I'm prepared to take my medicine.
Okay, good.
I'd say the last time I was close to receiving this level of anime bullshit was maybe Phoenix Wright, but that's kind of a very different type. But I had a great time with that game. I can't deny it. So I'm really hyped to play this. Is this part of This is the first game, right?
This is the first game, yes.
And you can buy that standalone on Switch?
You can buy it standalone on Switch. It's quite cheap. It's like 13 quid and goes on sale for 5 quid very often.
Okay, yeah.
So some caveats here.
Uh-oh.
This game has aged quite poorly in a few areas. So I played it in 2015. Let's say there is some problematic shit in terms of the writing and some of the representation in this game. And I think it's important to bring that up because you shouldn't gloss over it. But I think we all have this with like favorite games where it's like there's so many people who love Persona. Persona treats LGBTQ people very poorly. Like it's not good.
Right.
It's one of the most popular games in the world, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that, and it can be people's favorites, but you should be aware of it. So I do want to kind of say that going into it, that you will come across stuff and you'll be like, really? Like, really, we're doing this?
Well, I gave you Isun, so
that's true.
You can give
that's
me this.
Very true. That's true. Yeah, I got a heavy dose of sexism from that guy. Yeah, you know, games that have not aged well, and I think Danganronpa is modern enough to where but it's again. Unfortunately, this is what happens with Japanese games a lot of the time. And I would say even back in 2015 when I first played it, the world's moved on a lot since even 2015.
And it came out in...
Oh gosh, probably like 20... I think it actually came out on PSP originally, and then there was a Vita version. So it was actually probably mid-2000s, I would say, maybe 2008 or 10 or something like that.
Times have changed since 2010.
Yeah, totally.
So especially in Japan, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So I think just knowing that going in is important. And yeah, just making sure that that's out there, because I do think it's important to call out how terrible some of that stuff is. But the problem is like the rest of the game. This is the caveat part, is like the rest of the mystery and the stuff is so good. For me, I love Phoenix Wright. I think Phoenix Wright has excellent writing and like characters and music.
Yeah, I
would say the mysteries and the storytelling in Danganronpa is stronger than Phoenix Wright, and that's the reason I like it, is because you will be like, what's going to happen? You're like, who killed this person? And the slow reveal of stuff is really good. And I'm very interested to see how you take to it, because I feel like there's going to be lots of anime tropes in there, and of course anime bullshit, heavy dose. But
that's okay.
I do think the characters are quite strong and the writing is very good. And there's a lot to get out of it. I do think it has a really strong kind of narrative. So,
and just remind me, Danganronpa is a reference to the name of the game that they are playing.
No.
Or will all be revealed and you don't need to say anything.
So Danganronpa is a portmanteau of two Japanese words, one that means truth and one that means bullet. And
oh yeah, I remember. Yep, you've said this before.
So the idea is that when you get into these class trials, basically, so I think it's interesting because Danganronpa is very much like it's playing on the Hunger Games / Squid Game kind of thing, right? It is someone is murdered and then there's a trial about it to figure out who killed them, essentially. And during these trials, you have the way that you kind of interact with them is different to Phoenix Wright, where like statements will pop up and you have to basically do this like first person shooter thing where you aim your cursor at a statement, like a set of words, and you literally shoot a truth bullet at that statement. So that's basically what Danganronpa is. Literal truth bullet is part of the mechanics. And that's how you kind of counter people and figure stuff out. So that's kind of a bit of a primer on it. Again, I'm very interested to see how it goes.
I'm excited to play it.
Yeah,
good pick.
It's one that I think will breed interesting conversations at the very least. Which I think, much as Sonic Mania is like, it's a short game, I'll give them that. I don't think it was like as interesting to talk about because I hadn't remembered that much about it and stuff like that. So
I mean, it did come out a long time ago.
Totally.
So you played Danganronpa in 2015?
Yes, correct. Cool. And I think that was around the time I started watching anime as well, that moment. So I think that was the year.
The moment the corruption started. Okay.
That's when corruption started. So 2024 is the year where my corruption of Bally begins. We'll see where we're at the end. But let's see how it goes. Looking forward to it. All right. And I think that's going to do us for the regular parts of the show. Let's get on out of here with some shout outs, some plugs, some things. So let's shout out Bally, where people can go and support the show if they would so like to. Patreon.com/ThisNintendoLife, where people can find bonus episodes and other such stuff. We'd like to thank some patrons, a bunch of people actually.
Yes, we have a couple of brand new patrons. They are Alex F and Andrew Z. Thank you so much for your support. And $10 tier plus patron Albert actually increased his pledge. So thank you a whole lot, Albert. That's really, really, really appreciated. And I need to also shout out all of the $10 tier plus patrons. They are Zach S, Thomas, Matthew, Wicked Gamer UK Alan, Turtle, Ali T, and as I said before, Albert. So thank you all for your $10 tier plus support. And thank you to all of our other patrons. We've had a nice little boost the last few weeks. So thanks very much for that. And if you haven't supported us, don't feel obliged. We've just got some bonus content over there. You can support us for as low as $1 a month, and that will get you a whole extra episode every single month where we talk about lots of non-Tendo things. We did our non-Tendo predictions for 2024 very recently, so you can head on over there and check that out if you want.
In the Ali T saga of being a patron here, he did message us and did say like, well, you gotta keep that quality up, guys, otherwise I might disappear. So
do you think he listens to all the bonus content?
I don't think he listens to a single fucking thing that we say.
So how is he meant to judge the quality, Ali T?
I know, yeah, exactly.
Listen to it.
No, I know. I know that he has a colleague who listens to us at work, so maybe he gets like secondhand information through his colleague who like he told about the podcast and now listens to us. So that might be the thing.
We need to say something about Ali T here just as a test.
Just like slander, basically.
What's something we can say here that would guarantee him to message us something like, "What? How could you say that?" Maybe we could think about this for next time.
Yeah,
Ali T, watch your back. We've got the slot on the show now.
The ongoing saga of Ali T giving us money for suspicious reasons continues. So we'll continue to track it as it goes. So we'll see. Lovely. Well, you can find us all across the internet in various places. You can find us on Twitter at TNL Podcast to get updates about the show and what's happening. Find me at Lord NBZ. Where can they find you, Bally?
I'm on Twitter at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. And I joined Blue Sky.
Oh, wow. Fancy.
So, yeah, thanks again to friend of the show, Matt Lorgan, for sending over a Blue Sky code. So I've signed up to that. And there's not a whole lot of people over there.
No, there's not a lot of people.
I like its functionality so far. I think it's a nice little website. So if everything comes crashing down at some point, I'm over there. And I'm probably going to join the other ones at some point. But
we'll see. Yeah, absolutely. We'll figure it out. You can find the show in various places. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher. You can download us via podcasting apps and check us out and review us on those places as well. It'd be muchly appreciated. But that is going to do us for this episode. So thank you so much for listening. Next episode is going to be fun, Bally, because Prince of Persia's coming out. Oh, baby! I'm so excited.
It is. We've had the year of Bally. This is an NBZ ass NBZ.
This is NBZ core, as they would say, like bait in a way. We didn't talk about the demo, but I played that demo. It's the best feeling thing since Metroid Dread, and that's a fucking compliment. Like, holy shit, it moves, baby. It really does.
Silk Song, you've waited too long. You've missed your window.
Yep, you've missed
Prince
it.
of
Silk
Persia's
Song
come to steal the limelight.
You're gonna get dunked on. Very much looking forward to that. We'll be going in depth on it next time on the show. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and see you soon. Bye bye, folks. The musical interlude used on today's show was Elite Encounter from Sea of Stars, copyright Sabotage Studio 2023.